Hello, my name is Aaron Clooney, and per request from Venka21 on the FanimeCon forums, I'm going to talk a little bit about Dragon Ball Evolution. Now, my connection to Dragon Ball is a little different from some people's because mine's actually professional. For the past 5 or so years, I've done at least part of the translation for nearly every Dragon Ball video game that's come out. And in the process of doing that, I've become pretty intimately familiar with the storylines and all of the characters because, every new video game practically regurgitates that same storyline, and I end up having to do an entirely new translation with new voice scripts and all of that fun stuff. So it was out of sort of a, let's say, a twisted loyalty to the franchise that's put so much money in my pocket that I went and saw Dragon Ball Evolution last Friday with my friends. They don't have any kind of excuse like that, though. Dragon Ball is by no means, the best anime title out there, anime or manga, but by the same token, it's not, completely lacking in any kind of substance at all, the way some people seem to think it does. This is especially true if you look back at the beginning of the series before it really became, a succession of fights, and you had Goku and his friends going on, just magical adventures trying to find all of the Dragon Balls. The characters, even all the way into the later parts of like Dragon Ball Z, still had some depth to them. And seeing like Trunks trying to connect with his father when they're preparing to fight the androids, or like that moment when Goku becomes a Super Saiyan the first time and he's confronting Frieza, and Frieza just yells out, "What are you?" And Goku says like I'm the light in the darkness. I'm hope when the innocent cry out for peace. That kind of thing. That makes my hair stand on end. So I wasn't expecting much from the movie, and I didn't get much. I don't want to sound like a fanboy or anything because I expected some things at least to be changed because in a live action form, like having I don't see how they could have done a little like 12 or 14-year-old Goku without it being really annoying. So making him a teenager kind of made sense, even if Justin Chatwin was just really bland, all kinds of bland. But it feels like, as is too often the case with the cheaper Hollywood adaptations of anything really, that whoever wrote the script just didn't really get anything about the characters. I actually really like Goku as a character, but his appeal isn't that he's, an awkward teenager. If I wanted that, I'd, watch Transformers again for Shia LaBeouf or something. Goku is this really, like, simple guy, simple kid, really, he just loves to fight, and he's very pure, and, he protects people and protects the earth eventually and all that, just because, that's how he is. That's just to him the right thing to do, and his flaw is more that he just loves fighting a little too much. In contrast to that, Justin Chatwin's version of Goku was just kind of this guy who was there, and he was really a really powerful fighter at least, but it's just why is he even there? And kind of along those lines, they turned Bulma into this weird gun bunny, and the actress managed to give off a sort of Uma Thurman, Poison Ivy vibe, which it was just a really it's an accomplishment of sorts in terms of bad movies, but not exactly something to aspire to. The closest thing to a bright spot in the movie, I would say, was James Marsters' portrayal of Piccolo. If you don't know James Marsters, his best known role probably is he was Spike in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He's kind of a villain and had a long character arc over time, but he's definitely one of the more popular characters from that show, and he was probably the person who came closest to being able to act in Dragon Ball Evolution. And the Piccolo from Dragon Ball Evolution was kind of a new spin on the character. Definitely not the same guy that definitely not the Demon King Piccolo that you see in Dragon Ball. Uh, but he actually had some gravitas, I guess, to him. There was like a very brief scene where he was talking to his henchman Mai and saying, like what, can you imagine every molecule in your body being compressed down and staying that way for 2,000 years? I can't remember how the line went exactly, but he, he was probably the best thing in the whole movie, and they gave him like 3 lines through the entire thing. The rest of his involvement was just kind of standing there on his airship looking down at stuff and being menacing. But even setting all that aside, I think that the movie actually had the potential to be like a B movie classic even if they had had a better script. But I can't figure out what they were thinking because this script is just stuff kind of happens. It never really gels together. When they try to like foreshadow stuff, it's always very like ham-fisted with, every time Goku gets a new Dragon Ball, he gets this vision or something, and it's just, there's no subtlety to it at all. So, for example, in the original, uh, Goku's grandfather Gohan gets killed by Goku in his giant ape form, and Goku stays ignorant of this for ages, really. Not until Dragon Ball Z does he actually figure it out. And the giant ape, the Ozaru thing, it's such an obvious device to do interesting things with. It's your hero turns into this crazy monster the size of a building every full moon, and that wound up just being just a small part returned into like this 8 foot thing for like like a minute or two during the final battle. That was it. And every part of it was really had that kind of thing going. There were chances where they could have very easily done something more interesting with something, and they just didn't bother. Like, for example, they had Chi-Chi in the movie as like the hot Asian love interest of Goku. That's also something that didn't really work for the way it went in the original. But she was in there, and they showed her, and they showed her house. But for some reason, they didn't feel the need to show her father at all. And like a live action version of the Ox King, like they would have had to try to not make that awesome, even if it was just a little thing for like 30 seconds. Just, hey, Chi-Chi, it's your old man. But, as I said at the beginning, I'm not surprised by this, not in the slightest. I would have been more surprised if it turned out good, really. I mean, as an anime fan, I would like to see, some better, live action adaptations of stuff, but, just like with video games, it's still, it's going to take time for, I guess, for Hollywood to develop anything resembling some kind of respect for the source material, apparently. The more I hear about how Hollywood works, the more it seems to me that it's a miracle that anything good comes out anyway. And so, honestly, if Dragon Ball Evolution has been good at all, whether or not it was an anime movie, that would have been putting it ahead of the curve of a lot of the movies that came out anyway. And I mean, I've seen more than a few stinkers in my time. I mean, granted, it helps that I'm a little bit of a Mystery Science Theater 3000 fan, and I watch the riff tracks, that new thing they do, where you get an MP3 file and you play it with your DVD. So I've seen Battlefield Earth, and I cannot take John Travolta seriously anymore in anything, because the moment he's on the screen at any time, I think of his alien, his like Cyclo character. When you were learning to spell your name, I was learning to conquer planets. But I don't expect every movie to be another Citizen Kane or Godfather or even Dark Knight. And I definitely don't expect every adaptation to slavishly stick to the source material, because it's a different medium and has different needs. But they could try to to make it fun. The week before I saw Dragon Ball Evolution, I saw Fast and Furious. The fourth movie in the Fast and the Furious franchise, with Vin Diesel coming back, and it wasn't by any standard a good movie, but it was fun. It didn't take itself too seriously. It let itself become as ridiculous as it wanted to be, and it was just unpretentious, stupid, testosterone-fueled, high-octane fun. And the result was that Fast and Furious was actually funnier than a lot of the comedies that are out today. Or the way one of my friends put it was that Fast and Furious was Independence Day ID4 with cars. So, in conclusion, basically, Dragon Ball Evolution, it's not a good movie. If you're a really big Dragon Ball fan, you might want to rent it, but for the most part, just don't bother. It's not the Uwe Boll bad, because that takes something, but it's not worth your time, really. And I'm not going to say that, I don't want to see more Hollywood attempts at anime movies, but, just like with video game movies, I'm not going to hold my breath waiting for them to be good, because it's going to take time for them to figure out how to do that. Just like this, even now that we have like Dark Knight and so on out, it's still, doing comic book movies after all these years is still really hit and miss. So I'm sure we'll see some more over time, but when they come out, check the reviews, be critical, look at Rotten Tomatoes, all of that kind of stuff. Let the buyer beware, but don't get upset about it, because it's not worth your time. Anyway, that's my opinion on Dragon Ball Evolution, so thank you all for listening. Bye.